Well, it's been about 3 weeks since the hurricanes, and I thought I had escaped any issues with my boat with the hurricane. No damage, I thought. But I think I have some damage, and it might be actually something pretty critical. Let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, that's my little sailboat right there, that little gray hull. And you can see I keep it up on a lift. And I'm thinking that that might have caused this issue. All right, let's lower this thing down into the water a bit. I want to get it low enough in the water so I can get up on this thing, but not so low that it's not being supported by the bunks. And as I got in here, I saw this. Look at that crack, that layer of fiberglass that's completely lifted up. You can see it's up probably a ½ inch. I don't know if this whole mount is kind of coming up or if it's just this final layer. You can see this is the last sort of layup layer. I'm not sure what actually happened. What I'm thinking is that I had the boat sort of strapped down to the lift bunks. So that's what they look like wrapped around the I-beam. Now I just need to jack this thing up as high as it's gonna go. All right, I think that's got it. And the river rose a lot. There was a big surge. I'm thinking the water was coming up, lifting the boat and dropping it, and it was just sort of dropping it down on the bunk hard. And maybe it just ruptured that outer layer or that inner layer of fiberglass, or it could have softened the actual hull there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some measurements of how wide that gap is, and then I'm going to go ahead and drop the boat down into the water and see if that gap shrinks. If it doesn't shrink, then I know it was just sort of a rupture that delaminated that fiberglass, and I can grind all that off and then put in a bunch of new fiberglass. If it actually settles back down, I still got to put in a lot of fiberglass, but it's going to mean doing all the work and leaving it in the water so the hull stays stable and allowing it to set up for 4 or 5 days. And that's asking a lot because I really don't have anywhere to keep it that isn't this slip on these bunks. So I'll have to spend a few nights on anchor just waiting for this to cure. And I'm going to use a digital caliper here. I'm going to consider this little indentation right here, that little point, to be my point of measure. Alright, so we got 13.74 millimeters. Alright, let's drop her all the way in the water. I'm going to go ahead and put some ropes on her so she doesn't float out of the slip. Let's get her down on her water line. She's starting to float. So we've been having like steady, heavy winds from the northeast, and it's keeping this place rocking. Oh, it's been about 20 minutes. I don't even have to put the micrometer down here to see. You can see the crack is maybe 1/3 or 1/4 of what it was. So it's definitely getting pushed up by the bunks. So now what I'm going to try to do is just move the boat a little bit back on the bunks and see if that helps a little bit. I'm laughing because the more I look, the more I find. So I've got a little bit of rot on the bottom of my bulkhead right there, and I'm going to have to cut out. And then this, the base plate for my through hull, is getting soft on this side too. So I definitely got some projects on the hard. Hopefully I can get them done before sailing season really starts and I can get on my way down to the Keys. We'll see. All right, I've moved it back and I've got it up, supported by the bunk, and it looks like crack is still there. It's a little bigger than it was, but smaller than it was when we first got here. Now I just need to call down to the boatyard. Hopefully they got some time for me. I got to make like a 35-mile sail south. I guess that's going to be the fun part. Well, I called the boatyard and they told me they had a 3-month waiting list, so that's not going to do. I'm going to have to do all the work I can right here on the slip. All right, well, here goes nothing. Well, it didn't take me very long to figure out that I'm not going to be able to work around this seacock. I need to get that thing out of there because with it in place, I can't get enough fiberglass on there to make it structural. It needs to be able to spread out past where the seacock is. Here's what I decided to do. I took the boat and I pushed it back on the lift bunk, and now it's definitely nose down, which is okay, but it's also taken the load off that area right there. So the bunk, the hard point on the bunk is now about 2 feet forward of this. The load is on it and it's not deflecting. I feel comfortable going ahead and removing the seacock, which just, oh my God, that just makes me crazy to have to do that. But I'm gonna remove the seacock, cut the through hole, the threaded shaft that comes through, I'm gonna just cut it flush, and then I'm gonna fiberglass over the hole. And this way I can just do a one long big fiberglassing job. All right, day 2. Really kind of fell short yesterday. Didn't get a whole lot done, but at least I developed a plan. All right, so this little flange bolt has to get cut off. Oh, yes. Oh, it looks like it wants to move. I don't have a pipe wrench on board, so this thing's gonna have to do. I'm gonna have to put the grip on it. Oh yeah. It looks like it might be spinning that through hole. That sucks. I realized that the through hole fitting was actually spinning and I couldn't get this thing off of it, so it's time to cut through it, which is no easy task. It's a heavy walled bronze fitting. All right, we officially have a hole in the bottom of the boat. I just need to grind back everything I can reach and clean up and start fiberglassing. All right, well, that view, nice clear view of the river, is actually really terrific news. That means that when I move the boat back on the bunks, I actually cleared the bunk. And that means that once I've got this patched and watertight, I can actually take my time, find the hardware, and then reinstall the through hole and the seacock without having to haul this thing out. That's fantastic. That saves me like $600 and all kinds of headaches trying to find a place that actually will haul me out and let me work on my own boat. I've got everything nicely ground back, and now it's just a matter of wiping everything down with acetone before I do the fiberglass layup. Now I've got some thickened epoxy. Now I'm gonna put it down here and make a nice big fat fillet right there all the way around this thing. All right, that's got it. Pretty good. Now it's time to cut up some fiberglass cloth and start laying this thing up. All right, I've got the cloth all cut to size. So I'm gonna have 5 layers of this 17-ounce stuff. Hopefully that'll be thick enough and rigid enough. All right, I'm just gonna wet the surface a little bit before I put the cloth down. All right, it's getting late. Gotta work under lights now. All right, this is the semi-final step. I'm just putting down the teal ply. And of course, after all this is done, I just need to sand a little bit before I paint. All right, we're back in the shop, and this is our seacock, big massive thing. I've gone ahead and cleaned it out on the inside a little bit, and I was also able to get the remnant out of the through hole that was in there, like so. And that took some doing. I had to actually torch this, but I got it out. That was really key because this is probably a couple $100. If I had to replace it, I would replace it with something cheaper. Maybe go with one of the marine plastic ones. But I've got this relic that's a beast. I did mar the surface here a little bit when I was cutting this off, but it's not too bad. I'm gonna be able to just sort of face sand this, but I gotta put it on a brand new base plate that I'm gonna make. Let me show you how. So what I'm gonna do is take this 17-ounce fiberglass cloth and I'm gonna cut it into 6-inch squares. I'll be able to get 4 pieces here and another 7 pieces on the full width of it. So I'll do 2 rows of 7 and make up the difference with these guys, and we should be able to get a 1/2 inch. Since each layer of this stuff puts down about a 32nd of an inch, which is about 0.8 millimeters. So I should get my 1/2 inch with 16 layers, but I'm probably going to go with 18 layers since I've got enough with this little scrap piece. Now I just need to cut 6 by 6 pieces. And since I need something really good and flat and rigid to laminate these guys onto, I'm using this piece of wood. This is a piece of stair tread. And I'm going to take some peel ply and tape it down to it. Do the same thing with another piece, peel ply, press all those layers together with weight. Hopefully we'll get a really well saturated, solid layup. Just do the other one now. All right, now we got basically assembly line work. Just mix up some epoxy. I still have some of these cups that are already marked from the work on the boat. I might run out. I might have to order some more, but that's okay. Not too worried about stopping in between layers. Alright, that looks really good. I pretty much got all the air out of this thing. And now with the plate on top, I'm expecting it to squeeze even a little more air out of it if there's any in there. Let me see how much height we've got. It looks like it's like 5/8, so we got a little extra, I think. Alright, now I'm going to put this thing on here and I'm going to use some clamps to hold it in place. Alright, now it's just a matter of waiting for this thing to set up, so get back to it tomorrow. Alright, it's time to see what happened here. Alright, I need to get the other half off. So making my own plates was a good idea, just poorly executed. There you go, the last little bit. Check that out, 0.532. So probably could have gone with one less layer. I don't want it too much bigger than the base, so I'll probably make it just maybe a 1/2 inch wider than the base all the way around. Cut it out on the bandsaw. See if we can find the relative center here. So I've got this set up to drill the hole that will accept the fitting that comes up through the hull. So, and as I'm doing this, I realize, you know, this is a lot. This is a lot of work. It takes a lot of equipment. You can do this without a little drill press. You could do it by hand, but it would be a little tougher. You do have to have all the tools, and you do have to have at least a good drill, hole saws, and all that kind of stuff, and a little bit of skill. And the name of this channel is Sailing in Real Life. And in real life, how many folks really can do this kind of stuff? You really got to kind of take a look at your situation, your skill level, and the amount of money you have. Because of course, money can take the place of skill every day of the week because you just buy the skill from someone else. And while I have, you know, a lot of like varied experience and a lot of things that I've done in my life, I'm certainly not an expert as you guys are watching and seeing, but I'm really willing to make a lot of mistakes and learn. So that's something you really got to kind of consider as you're thinking about getting into sailing. And especially if you're on a budget like I am, where you're buying an old boat, you're not dropping it off at the marina and having them get it ready for the season. I've got to pretty much do everything myself to stay within my budget. And luckily, I have a little bit of skill, I got a lot of tools, and I really like to do the work. So let me go ahead and drill this. That's got it. Nicely cut. And I've got this little puck that I'll probably put away forever because somewhere in my mind I'm thinking, I could use that sometime. So what I've done is I've taken the cut off piece of fitting that I torqued out of this thing. I wrapped part of it in electrical tape so it would fit the hole that I drilled more snugly. I'll just partially screw this in. Then I can put it on right there, and I know that it's nicely centered. It's not going to move, and now I can mark the bolt hole. Alright, I'm going to drill some little pilot holes, and then I'll have to make a bigger hole to countersink the head of the bolt on this side. So the idea is the bolt goes in, and then we cover the head with some thickened epoxy to seat it. Of course, this is the wrong size bolt. the valve goes on top and gets bolted down. All right, so here's my plan to be able to do all this by myself. So this is going to have to go in from the outside and go flush with the hull, so that when this goes on the inside, it doesn't move the angle of this thing, so it stays flush on the hull. And this thing is going to be filled underneath here with thickened epoxy that will take up any kind of like distance or space at all between the hull, the inside of the hull, and this backing plate. And to be able to hold all this stuff from the inside, I come up with this little peg. And then while I'm on the outside of the boat, I can just slide this through, tie on a string that'll go through the hull. Then on the inside, I can just pull this up against the hull, put the thickened epoxy on the inside, drop this on the hull on the inside. And I've got the threads covered up with some Teflon to protect them from that thickened epoxy. Then I'll have a spacer, and then this nut will act as the body of the seacock. And then I can actually hold on to the wooden peg, which fits into the little lugs on the inside of this fitting, and turn this nut without turning the fitting. And then I'll just let the thickened epoxy set. When it's all set, I can remove all this, cut these threads to length, and then put the seacock on. And that should do the job with just one person working. Alright, so I'm mixing a little bit of the silica with the epoxy resin, just a tiny bit. And I want to make it thick enough so it's kind of like peanut butter. And that's what I'm going to fill these holes with, so I can place my bolts permanently in there. And I'm using stainless steel because I just don't want to go through the hassle of trying to find some bronze hardware. And I'm going to use nylon washers to get a little bit of a separation between the bronze and stainless steel, just to kind of hold off any corrosion. So I'm going to stick a little bit in there before I put the bolt in and cap it off like that. And let's do the same thing on the other one. There, should have worn gloves. Always think of that, it's too late. There you go. I'm going to put it down on, this is a piece of plastic and then a piece of peel ply on top. This way it won't stick to anything. And I'm going to put this thing on there just to make sure they stay nice and straight and aligned with the holes. And I'll run some 1/4 nuts on there just to make sure they're snug. Alright, that should have it. We should be ready to go in about 4 or 5 hours. And the plan is to get under here with a little mini working barge that they have, which is over there, just another dock over. And this is the barge. Alright, hopefully I don't get swept away all the way to Jacksonville. Current looks worse than it is, I think. We turned the corner. Now it's just a matter of pulling myself along this side with the current keeping me up against this dock. Make the sprint across the current. Luckily we've got some friendly wind. Alright, we're under the boat. And here's the through hole. The through hull hole. And you can see where I sealed it with the fiberglass. So next step is to cut this out and start the process of putting in the backing plate. Alright, I'm going to use a hole saw without a centering bit. The thing is, I'm going to do this. So that's the thickness of the stuff I laid up. A little more than a 1/4 inch. Alright, I'm mixing a batch of epoxy so I can thicken it with this stuff. This is a slow set epoxy, so it should give me plenty of time to stumble around like the amateur I am. We mix the two components together, make sure they're well blended before I put the thickener in. And before we get too far along, let me put some gloves on before I regret it. Alright, I've got all the components threaded through this line. You see that red line going down, and we gotta put all this stuff on here. And just need to place this so it aligns correctly with my dot. Pull the hardware through. Not as easy as I thought it would be, but it's coming. There it is. That's going to take some cleaning. I've got this kind of snugged up. Alright, my little rope technique worked. Thank goodness. Working by yourself sucks. But that's the downside of being retired. Nobody else is retired, so come Tuesday afternoon, nobody's available to help. Making sure these threads are clean and they don't have epoxy on them, because I don't want to get screwed and not have this thing unscrew. Alright, that looks pretty good. That is as robust a backing plate as you'll ever see. Alright, it's been a couple of days. One more complication. The nut ended up getting glued on there, and I was so sloppy. So now I'm cutting the nut off, trying not to damage the threads on the through hull too much. Otherwise, I'm out another 40 bucks. All right, one of the nice things about belonging to a sailing club is sometimes they've got nice pieces of equipment that you can use. All right, time to clean up and get the 5200 on there. And I was only able to find black, so oh well. Just gonna wipe all the surfaces down with acetone. Alright, I'm not gonna snug it down until I get the through hull at least threaded in there, just to make sure they align well. Now to get under the boat and get the through hull threaded in and snugged down. Alright, that's got it. It's tightened down, sealed up pretty nicely, and yeah, it's not pretty, but it'll get painted with anti-foul before long. Now to snug down the nuts on the valve, and then put on the brand new hose barb fitting and get that snugged down. And with the drain hose in, it's just a matter of tightening up the hose clamps. The sun is going down now, it's getting kind of late, and I'm gonna hit a lot of traffic going home. Thanks for watching. Thank you to everyone who actually comments, which is like 2 people. It's a tiny channel, but I'm really enjoying making these videos. I would love to hear any suggestions from you guys, what you want to see. The next video should be a sailing video. I want to try to make my way up into Georgia a little bit and do like maybe a 3 or 4 or 5 day sail, or at least a couple of days sailing and a couple of days just chilling. But I gotta sort out my battery issue. I got one bank that's not charging. And if you're enjoying this stuff, share it with your buddies. I'd like to grow this tiny little channel a little bit.